Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Lucy Heavens, and I am VP of Marketing at Salv. Over the next 45 minutes, we are going to be looking at the new instant payments regulation. But before we kick off, I've just got a few quick housekeeping items that I want to mention. Firstly, the format of today's webinar is a panel discussion. So I'm going to be moderating a lively debate with my fantastic industry guests here. Secondly, we'd love to hear from you. So we've allowed time throughout the webinar for questions. So please feel free to type them in and we will do our best to answer them as part of the conversation. We've got some super interesting resources that are available. So take a look at those in the attachment section. And then finally, a recorded version of this webinar will be available and sent directly to your inbox after we've finished. So before we start the panel discussion, I just want to take a minute to set the scene and give a little background as to why we're discussing this today. So we live in a world of instant now, right? And payments are no exception. So no more having to wait days or weeks for a payment to appear in your account. Instant payments are now super quick and more secure, and they've really transformed the payments landscape, meaning that we now expect that 24/7 availability and the seamless experience. But at the same time, the clever criminals have been just as quick, if not quicker, to take advantage of the growth of instant payments to commit fraud. So they often have devastating consequences for both financial institutions and the poor customers who are victims. So the European Union has introduced new legislation that impacts the instant payment space, specifically by changing the requirements of sanction screening. And the instant payment regulation entered into force in April 2024, and the PSPs will need to comply with the first obligations as of the 9th of January 2025, so very soon. There are a number of key changes, and as always, the obligations aren't exactly crystal clear. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Thankfully, I have two experts to back me up here. So first of all, let's start off with some quick introductions. Siri, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lucy, for inviting me to the webinar. And hi, everyone on the other side of the screen. I'm Siiri Krabi. I'm the sanctions officer at Coop Pank in Estonia. And I am then responsible as well for the compliance with the instant payment regulation when it comes to the sanctions part. But I have been as well on the other side of the table, the one who has been posing sanctions from the foreign ministry's side. So long experience with the topic.
Excellent, thank you. Anu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anu, and I'm the head of client operations here at Salv. I'm really excited to be here and to be discussing it as head of client operations. You know, I've been in lots of discussions with our clients, trying to understand how we here at Salv can help our clients to be compliant with this new regulation, which is raising, a lot of questions and a lot of interesting discussions. So very excited to be here.
100%. That's great. Thank you very much. Siri, I'm going to start off with a question for you. So in 2023, last year, real-time payments accounted for 266.2 billion transactions globally. It's massive. It's a 42% increase from the previous year. So with the speed and volume growing at this rate, what is the biggest challenge with the requirements to screen both customers and payments?
Well, first, what is really difficult is to handle clients, right? That they will understand that the speed and instant payments, they're not human rights. So that if there are controls in place and to be applied, then sorry, the payment will not go through with a few seconds. And it will never be a human right. There will always be some controls and checks. But the biggest challenge, of course, has been to understand whether you have to have more staff who would go through the payments, the screening, and so on, the more and more alerts, or how to make your system efficient and automatic clearance rules as much as possible. And there, it is very, very important to understand your landscape. Where are you working? Who are your clients? Who is your screening service provider? How can you work and cooperate with your service provider? And how can you improve the systems? So what we have done a lot is that we have set up a lot of clearance rules by looking at where our clients are, with whom they make the payments. So we have kind of taken the risk-based approach. So if really the payment is made by a famous conductor, Anu Tali, does it really have to alert with Abu Talib? And poor Anu Tali never ever can make any instant payments. So obviously you try to look at your customer and understand who he or she is, what are the payments, and can you somehow make her life easier? And as well, do you have to screen all the reference lines against everybody? If the person is deceased, for example, like general in North Korea called Pak Tu Chun, and then in the reference line it says in Estonian Pak To Hunti. In Estonian, we all understand they're clear Estonian words. Pak is a package, To is spring, Hunt is a bar in Estonia, in Tallinn, everybody knows. Clearly, you're not gonna alert this payment, right? So you have to set your priorities right. You have to think, can your client, can a deceased person become your client? Can a deceased person make a payment? Are there any other risk indicators that you can use instead of screening against everything and everyone in each and every payment? You should rather think, do I screen the right fields against right things? And where can I set the clearance rules so that the instant payments would work with or without the IPR?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like, it's interesting what you said at the start there, but now it was the title of this webinar is the kind of clash or collaboration, right? It's not here to sort of make your life harder. It's supposed to be here to kind of help you to or help everyone in the industry to kind of do the right thing. But yeah, it's very interesting what you say about starting. It's almost like your starting point is the clearance rules. Then that's where you're kind of suggesting that the company should start from.
Yes, like first you need to know which data you have on your clients and in the payments. Then how much do you send of this information to your screening system so that the clearance rules could work? So if you are only sending the name of your client to the screening system, obviously it will alert. We have 6 different Sergei Ivanovs under sanctions. Clearly, that's a very common name. And then if you only send the name to the screening, each and every Sergei Ivanov will alert in your system, right? But you want to clear them because you know their nationality, you know their date of birth, you know their citizenship, you have all that data. So you have to think of the data you have to do the segmentation and send the right information that would help you to create the clearance rules to your screening system. The same with the payments. There's so much going together with the payment information. The payment type, quite often there's the date of birth included, or then the ID code or the address, and so on and so on and so on, that you can use to create the clearance rules. But if you do not send the information to your screening system, then you cannot create either any clearance rules.
Okay, so yes, start with the data segmentation then. So I misunderstood that. Yeah, start the data segmentation is kind of almost the most important part then. Is there a difference between the screening rules for different payment types?
Yes, you can easily do that as well. And there it's clearly then the risk-based approach, right? And if you have the payment type, whether it's the Target 2 or CBPR plus payment, it's the international payments, for example, or it's the SEPA payment, or then SEPA instant payment, or then there are as well different payment types in different regions or inside different countries. So you have to understand which types of payments are made, and it's always good to send it to your system as well, because then you can do the segmentation there as well first when you apply the clearance rules. Like there's no way that an regular Estonian word that we have here in Estonia would correspond to the sanction subject, right? Then you can easily just say that if it is a SEPA payment or SEPA instant payment, and it's the internal payment in Estonia, using this very common Estonian word, clear it, because it cannot be very similar name or word to somebody who is under sanctions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's the same, like the Pakto Hunti version, right? It's like nothing to do with North Korea.
Yeah, yeah. I love the kind of the practical examples. It's really great. Have you got any kind of other examples of how you've kind of unblocked some of those sort of challenges that the regulation brings in terms of like automating that screening kind of logic for the payments, for the different payment types?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's still work in process, as we still do not have clear indications on what are expected from us. Do we in the end have to freeze the payments coming from those who are owned or controlled by those who are under sanctions? Or do we have to send them back and the 10 seconds rule applies? It's like, oh, the government bodies or then the regulators, they might understand it one way. The European Commission might interpret it differently. I know that, for example, in Estonia, we're still waiting for the reply for the European Commission. And then we have those internal lists, right? Some member states, they have their internal sanction lists. How do they apply then this 10 seconds rule? Do they have to freeze? I know that in some member states at the moment, they have to freeze the instant payments, although the money doesn't go along. It's just the payment instruction that goes through initially. But even those have to be frozen. Like the same understanding is here in Estonia, for example. But then when it comes then to the instant payments, how do we have to change it? Commission has said one thing in its webinar, but it was not put in written, so we are kind of struggling with it. So it's there, and of course then it's very difficult to even differentiate it at the moment. Who is under EU asset freeze and who is under any other sanction, any other type of sanction, whether a financial or non-financial. And until there's no readiness or preparedness by the EU side to take a step further so that we could implement it, it's going to be a puzzle, a struggle. Thank God, Salv is our partner. So we're trying to figure it out with Anu together.
Thank you for the plug. I think you know, it's I love your kind of honesty and what you're saying. It makes perfect sense. But I think what you said at the beginning is it just makes it even more super important. The key to all of this is the data segmentation, right? Because if you focus on that and your kind of data is in the right order, or you know where to go for things, when suddenly some of these things start to become clearer and clearer and clearer, then you can always go back and very, very easily apply the kind of new rules or logic, because you know where your data is, right?
Exactly. And then you have to Google a bit as well and make sure that you know who are the Eurozone countries and who are the EU member states in the Eurozone country. Unfortunately, with the Brexit, the UK is no more part of the EU. At the same time, there are some countries who are using euros, but they're not in Eurozone nor in European Union. But due to the historic reason that the Deutsche Mark became euro, they had to change for euro as well. So you need to know a bit of history as well. So yes.
Yeah. A confusing market.
Yes.
I think you know, one of the things that's quite interesting is that, yeah, you know, we've just spent the last however many minutes kind of, you know, talking about the processes and everything kind of sitting in the background. But obviously what we do recognize is that these regulations are put in place obviously to protect the customers, right? And like I said, kind of at my introduction, you know, what the customers are looking for is that kind of instant, you know, everything kind of happening immediately, right? You know, they want to see that kind of like seamless payment experience happen, and money just, you know, dropping into kind of accounts as soon as that action has been taken. Like, what impact do you think that this might have on the customer? You know, some of the things that we've been talking about here about kind of freezing the payments, obviously for very, very good reason. But what do you think the impact might be?
I don't think the clients with this regulation will feel any faster payments or will have any better experience. There might be some more trust in making those instant payments inside the EU with less verification or less screening. But at the same time, there are US sanctions, right? And then, as we know, with the OFAC sanctions, it's like 99.9% of the names who are in EU list are as well in the OFAC list. So, and especially after the Christmas present we got from OFAC from the US last year, with their executive order 14114, nobody dares not to screen against the OFAC list, because every financial institution might become subject to OFAC sanctions if you are allowing those who are under Russia sanctions to do the payments. And then if you go and look for the sanctioned persons and entities in the EU under the Russian sanctions in OFAC, then you can clearly see how many possibilities there are, and you can just easily otherwise do the transaction with the OFAC sanctioned person. So nobody would do that. So those payments will not go smoothly through anyway, but it will definitely improve from the client screening perspective. That what I've heard in some countries, it's not even a daily process of screening your client. At least it becomes daily and hopefully even more frequent, so that we can gain the trust between all the member states and all the financial institutions, that at least those who are under EU or UN sanctions, those assets will be frozen.
Yeah, interesting. And I think you know, the one of the biggest kind of answers, I suppose, to any sort of customers that may be challenging, whether it's the speed or, you know, whatever, the payments, but having that kind of audit trail is super important, right? Because then you can answer and kind of give an explanation as to why, you know, I'm sure if there is really good reason that a payment has taken a bit longer or is being, you know, looked at, investigated, then yeah. As long as you've got the audit trail.
Yes, definitely. You need to have the audit trail, because if you do screen against EU SDNs in the payments, you can be fined. So you have to even be able to provide the information and the audit trail to your supervisor, who can then verify, yes, you didn't screen against the EU SDN. That is not why the payment didn't go through, but it was to your own risk-based approach, your own AML rules, fraud rules, other sanction programs that you have to follow due to your risk-based approach. Yeah, so you definitely need to have the audit trail.
Yeah, perfect. And thinking about this from a technology point of view, then we were just talking there about that kind of clash between, expectations from the customer with, everything happening immediately, and obviously having to also do the right thing for kind of screening. What are the challenges that you've seen with customers in kind of balancing both of those?
So yeah, I think I would like to divide this question into, what are the challenges today, and then what are the challenges now when IPR becomes to affect. So on one hand, instant payments are an excellent product for a customer, right? I myself love instant payments because, I also expect everything to happen immediately. But on the other hand, that same speed creates a significant challenge for financial institutions. So because you have to do all the processing, including compliance checks within such a short time, we are talking of 10 seconds. So speed from technology point of view is definitely one of the biggest problems. And additionally, if the compliance setup lacks accuracy or tooling is bad, and there's a high percentage of transaction triggering alerts, which causes instant payments to be rejected, then this has a negative impact on the customers, on the end user experience, which no company wants. If the true positive rate is higher, then it's at least justified, but often false positive rate is very high. And so most of those rejections are unnecessary. And again, it impacts the end users. So on paper, I understand that IPR is trying to tackle a lot of those problems, but they don't exist. EU does not exist alone, as Siri was already covering. And the IPR itself is now also creating new challenges. So I would say that the biggest challenges right now are understanding their regulatory obligations, because you have to first understand, and there's so much confusion. And then once that is kind of solved, there's still the struggle of having a tooling, having the data understanding, being able to segment data, so that would be able to implement such granular frameworks. So yeah, I think the challenges are right now a little bit shifting into understanding their regulations and then having granular tools to implement different setups.
Yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense. And again, it kind of links nicely going back into this kind of key theme that seems to be running all the way through, which is that data segmentation, right? So, so what in your view then, kind of what role does technology play in helping to address some of those challenges?
Yeah, that's a good question. So personally, coming from technology side, I of course think that technology is the key. So technology is essential for separating compliance setups for different payment types, as well as customer segments. So financial institutions, they need tools that allow granularity, so that they can ensure that the instant payments are not screened against asset freeze EU sanctions, for example, and during transaction processing. But at the same time, they still need to be able to screen against UK, against OFAC, all these other sanction programs that they have to follow. And then you still have regular SEPA transfers, and these you do have to screen against EU asset freeze. So you have quite a lot of complexity. And you need a technology that then is in the first place able to have different screening configurations, different lists, even different matching logic depending on the payment type or customer segment. And that, of course, is not all. So then we do go a little bit more deeper into data segmentation. So you need a tooling that allows you to define what is an instant payment. So that means factoring in data points like payment type, but also currency, jurisdiction. So yeah, so you have to be able then, for example, let's say that if these three conditions make the payment an instant payment, you have to be able to have a system that applies one set of lists. But if the conditions are not met and it's not defined to be an instant payment, then different lists have to be screened against. So having this kind of like a adaptable setup ensures, you can handle your compliance well, ideally keep your payments moving. So this is what we've been building, to allow this very granular approach. And at the end of the day, from my perspective, it's not even just IPR, this will allow our clients beyond IPR have more like tailored, risk specific, and also regulation specific setups across the board.
Love that. So there's two main things there, which is again the kind of the ability to use technology to segment your data to add that kind of level of granularity, and then the ability to kind of add the being able to kind of add the customized rules and things on top of that is basically what you're saying. Is the sort of the benefits of that technology can bring, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the technology can really help you to have very different risk-based and regulation-based approaches to different customer segments and different payment types.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you. We do actually have a question that's coming from the audience. It goes back to a discussion that we were having a minute ago, but I think it'll be quite a good one just to bring in quickly now, because I think it also tags on to the technology point. But the person's asking, do we have a view on what a good audit trail looks like under the IPR? Siri, is that something maybe you could?
No, I don't have it yet. I wish I'd had. And what because it's very difficult to say, as there are no expectations or instructions laid out by the regulators nor by the European Commission what the good audit trail would look like. I have the vision in my head what the good audit trail would look like. I have shared it with Anu and the Salv team. But how it will look out in the end, or what is expected, what is approved or not approved by the regulator, is probably something when we find out when we get fined for not doing it right, I'm afraid. So I really hope there will be some instructions coming out on that.
Yeah. And just to add on that, so from technology perspective, so how we are trying to tackle this lack of understanding is to track everything in the backend, to make sure that we are every single setup, every single change, every single check is trackable in the system. And then, but of course, then we are trying to also understand exactly what are the expectations, what we should be making visible in the front end, so that customers can easily access without having to come to us and start asking. But yeah, the first step is that we are trying to make sure that everything is in the back end stored, every single step.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the regulator, there's the doing the right thing and there's doing the thing right. And I think the regulator would say that they want you to do both, right? But actually, I think doing the right thing is more important, especially in the case where there is so much kind of ambiguity, I suppose, around the or complexity around the regulations. Just as long as you can prove that you are keeping an audit trail of everything that you're doing, then you're proving that you are doing the right thing. Yeah, so just keep a track of everything.
For just in case, yes. But Lucy, do you mind me just jumping in on what Anu said about the technology being the key and then going to the granularity in the systems and so on? I totally agree with Anu, and this is where you should really look into who is your service provider. How willing are they to incorporate the new regulations and systems on their part, on their behalf, and how much do you have to then develop on your core system? And that is very important, that you and your service provider do speak the same language and you have the same goals. I couldn't personally imagine having a service provider who would say that, yes, if you want me to develop something like that, I will first send you the price offer for considering, and then I will send you the price offer for doing that. And then they have like tens, hundreds of clients, and they have received exactly the same thing from each and every client, and in the end they are not compliant or compatible. Instead of having a service provider who understands your pain, because that's their pain as well, and they want you to keep offering good service, and it's rather the cooperation and the understanding from the service provider's side that if they develop something, this is good for all of their clients.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to sound super fluffy, but it's the difference between being a technology provider and being a partner to your customers, right? So question for both of you. The regulation uses words like reasonably fast and or immediately, which obviously kind of creates a lot of confusion. What's reasonably fast to one person might be something completely different to another. So what are your thoughts? Like, can you describe the process for periodically, as it says, verifying users against sanction list in the IPR, and how often does this like verification need to be conducted? Who wants to take that one?
Okay, I can perhaps start. So yeah, I think there are like two conditions that we are trying to meet. So one is the periodically, which is at least once a day. And ideally that would be a standard already. And it is a standard in some jurisdictions, but as Siri already mentioned, it's not unfortunately, standard everywhere. So at least that improves. But the second one is the confusing one. The second one is that you have to screen immediately or then, reasonably fast as soon as relevant sanctions are published or changed. And that's where we also struggle with understanding, okay, what is the definition? Because reasonably fast can mean so many different things. So from our side, right now, what we are aiming to do is that we are already updating the lists 3 times a day. So we are amping up our rescreening of customer base as well to match that, so 3 times a day. So for right now, we think this approach is enough. But as the market evolves and the standards actually become clearer, then we are ready to step up things quickly if needed. But it's definitely a struggle. So we are a little bit, in the blind and going with 3 times per day. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Siri, do you have a view on that?
Yeah, there are so many different interpretations. What does immediately, without due delay, as soon as possible, within a reasonable period of time mean? According to the German rules, it's within 3 working days. Recently, I heard from Rusi, it's within 40 hours. And some interpret it without due delay within a couple of hours. And then there's no clear expectations set out in any Q&A or anywhere by the European Commission, so that all and each and every EU member state would do it the same way. That would say that, yes, actually, this can be in your internal law that it's within 3 working days, but then the EU law, EU regulation is coming first, and you have to then do this and that. And then there's even a bigger challenge is that, okay, there's the EU list, it's published. There are maybe 200 persons, 400 companies listed, and they are all published only in the European official journal in the Christmas Eve, and they are in PDF version, not even machine readable version. So you would have to read them like this. They're scanned in, and you cannot even copy paste them to your manual screening system. So if the EU expects us to do something and be swift, do everything on time, be quick, and so on and so on. Of course, at least I expect most of us or all of us are using list providers. But even for them, how many people would they have to have in Christmas Eve to be like this and type them in, and how many flows are coming in, so on. So if the EU would at least step up there and would say that, yes, we are always providing machine readable versions, And you can download them into your system straight away and start screening. And there are a proper set of identifiers included and so on. That would be much easier. And let's see, what does that mean? But that we have to verify immediately after the new list has been then published at the EU official journal. I hope the 3 times per day will work, but if not, then I'm very happy that at least from Salv's side, they are thinking of other versions as well. But it's rather more confusing as well, as that what does shall verify mean? Does it mean that all the banks have to work as well over the weekends and bank holidays, or is it sufficient if those who have been alerted against cannot initiate or receive instant payments until the alert has been solved? And of course, then all the rest of the payments would have to be screened against anyway, so that you couldn't allow any other payments without verification either. And it definitely is a struggle. What is expected? What are the timelines? When shall we do that? Or there are no any clear guidance actually on what to do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm already thinking about Salv's next marketing campaign where, you know, we don't give you our system, our screening does not give you neck ache. We don't make you. There's a person from the audience actually that has asked a question, is something that came to mind as you were talking, but they've said, what about verifying if a potential hit is true or false match? Are you considering implementing a 24/7 team for reviewing? You know, you were talking about kind of Christmas Eve, you know, with these lists and things. Is this where we're heading?
It seems so, that at least the expectation seems to be that this is where we're heading. But, well, if you have to verify, maybe you will have to collect some additional information from the client. Yes, you in a screening team might then go and ask the question, ask for additional documentation if you have any doubts. Although we all expect that we have plenty of information on our client, but there might be recent changes, right? And where the client has not informed you of the changes and you have to collect that. Okay, yes, I skipped my Christmas dinner, but then there's my KYC colleague who would have to contact the client. Would they have to be at the post as well, for just in case that maybe they will have to send a question or request to the client? And can we really expect the clients to reply on Christmas Eve? Maybe they're enjoying with their families.
Yeah. It's unfortunate though that, you know, this is the kind of the gaps, I suppose, that is what the criminals actually identify. You know, back in the day when we didn't have instant payments and everything used to happen, or all of the banks were shut down over the weekend, you know, that was a fantastic opportunity for criminals. A lot of activity happened on a Saturday when they realized that like things weren't going to get checked then until Monday morning. So, you know, they could make payments quite fast and under the cover. But yeah, just we've got a kind of, you know, 5 minutes left to go, but just thinking about the last 5 minutes then, to sort of round it all up, like what would you recommend that our audience really focus on? What practical steps can be taken to ensure readiness for these screening requirements, as much as we know for the 9th of January deadline?
So from my side, I would recommend to start with internally with data segmentation, understanding the data, ensuring that the data is there, so that when there is a clarity, then you can define what is an instant payment, and you know, defining also the relevant customer segments. So really understanding the data, ensuring that the data is there and ready to be sent to your provider, or if you do it in-house, you know that in-house you're ready to implement it. But the second thing is then ensuring that you do have granular tooling, that your tooling allows to separate frameworks for instant versus non-instant. So having that ready. So again, as soon as there's clarity, understanding, and that you're ready to implement. And then, of course, within that, also ensuring that the tooling allows auditability. So making sure that down the line, if the auditors do come in, so if the regulators do come in to check what you've been doing, that you can, your tooling supports showing that, you know, you've been doing everything by the book to the degree that we understand what the book is.
Do the right thing. Siri, how about you?
Yeah, I would only add one thing to what Anu said, because this is at least what we are trying to achieve. All that what Anu was saying is make sure as well that if your service provider doesn't do that, you are capable of understanding who is the so-called EU SDN and who is not. Who do you have to still keep screening against and who you are not allowed to screen against.
Yeah, okay. So preparing for readiness is really just trying, the first is 4 steps, really just trying to understand as much as you can at the moment. And I think definitely reach out to colleagues and peers, right? Talk to other people, other companies about what they're doing. Obviously, that's what we're trying to sort of do here with this webinar, is to help with that education. But that's the first step, is the education, then the data segmentation, then looking at kind of what systems, tools and processes that you've got in place, and then the audit trail, kind of in those sort of 4 steps. Is that right? Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we're coming up to time now, so I'm going to wrap it up. But you both have been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your honesty and all the expertise and experience and everything that you brought to this today. So thank you very much. And to the audience, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having us. It was a lovely conversation, and Siri, always love chatting with you. I've learned a lot, so thank you so much.
Thank you. The same words. It's always a pleasure to work with Salv. It makes life so much easier.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.